just talked about, I think we were really, we focused on our mission. We focused on looking for new people, looking for people and saying to them, we see you. We think that you can, make transformative changes in our community, whether that be in one of the things we mentioned in education, in science and Brookhaven National Lab, and in any organization. It seems like it's really a time where we're searching for what the different groups are and looking for new and very special leaders. So let's see. Dr. Walker, Belgrave.
I'm going to try to unmute myself. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. So our group,
what's
just briefly, that's okay. We discussed the influential entities in our lives, and some of them were supervisors who are actually starting to have diversity councils put in place and asking those critical questions. Social media and the platform that it provides. We also talked about, of course, George Floyd, and how the heads of schools are creating dialogue regarding diversity, which gives, it's been giving some of the people that joined my group some hope for change. And it seems like there may be some opportunity to be heard. There was also, with regards to our second question, how we can invoke influence to make the change. And that came about by maybe being present at the table, at those executive meetings, so that we can speak to how we're feeling, speak to the traditional disparities as it relates to inequities in pay, position, so on and so forth. And maybe letters of action are different. They're different from, letters are much different per se from our actions that we take. So they want to see more actions and they want to have a presence at the table to make such happen. And possibly educating. And it was interesting because the people who participated were interested in educating others about themselves and learning about the culture. So whether that be the culture of the organization or culture of social media, whatever have you, they were willing to share their differences and take in differences of others. And sometimes they felt it made them angry because they are the minority in the group and in this current climate, and they want to have more of an understanding. And so it was also shared that Black Lives Matter has been an excellent platform for having those uncomfortable conversations, and that perhaps, or that they wish social media had more in-depth dialogue to it, to address the differences with, that we're having, so that we can expand upon it. And actually, someone mentioned a podcast with regards to uncomfortable conversations, and I believe it was with African or Black males. So we shared some information, and we also discussed how we're feeling about it and what we think we can do.
Okay, Dr. Clifton. Is Dr. Clifton there? Am I there?
I'm sorry, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're talking about what an individual can do, gathering friends, people who are sympathetic and enlarging the group sphere of influence. And then we talked about educating the young and maybe having classes at a very early age to show, the idea of equity and that the sameness that we all have. And then, it came up about certain matters of outrage over really looking at the shadow of America. We can't just be praising it when, we enslave a group of people for many years and slaughter the Indians and rationalize it. So, using that anger and looking at the shadow, that energy can produce something to, like when teachers get together and get a strike and get some benefits that they were, and getting teachers to get off in West Virginia food stamps. So how to use these feelings and going on. So it was a good conversation.
Okay, Natalie.
Thank you. I had a great group. I had the great fortune of having at least two veterans on in our group, three, people who have found this so very helpful, this community, and have come back week after week. So we had an educator, we had a scientist, we had nonprofit, for-profit, a good blend of people in terms of what they experience and their orientation. And what we really talked about was, at the start of the conversation, we all might not have clearly identified what an influential voice or organization actually might be. But as we talked through it and had the time to reflect and really put in perspective that what we were talking about is what we could manage from where we sat. So in terms of our immediate world and what we're exposed to, we looked at religious organizations, educational organizations, and universities, and corporate responsibility. So the for-profit organizations, those that are purpose-driven and align with our core values that we have a relationship with. We talked about local civic organizations, mayor's offices, things within our reach that we could actually physically do something with and to, or volunteer organizations that we already belong to. The fact is, we might already belong to organizations that have an influential voice in some way. The challenge now is putting ourselves in the seat to ask the question or challenge the organization to do something differently, because we're in this multifaceted world, and every organization, every group has an impact that can be made on this society. We didn't get here overnight. This has certainly been a journey. And so if we really look at where we sit today from our seat, there actually are more influencers and organizations and people that we can interact with to make a difference. So I think it was a very good conversation. We had a good meeting of the minds. We really talked about the passion that we need to layer on top of the emotional lens that we have, looking for that to really drive us in the right direction, taking the time. And even if we can't find an organization, we can write an article, we can blog, we can share. Social media was mentioned before. There are so many ways for us to use what is in our immediate world and identify how we can get involved with it to move toward change.
Wonderful. That sounds great. And then Shaw.
Hi guys.
Hi.
We had a whole bunch of different perspectives. So we started off by talking about unions. So we had two people, and they were different because one person had a very strong union, and the other person had not that much of a strong union. So the first union that they mentioned was United University Professionals. This is a SUNY system society where the union has been protecting and advocating for equality, on the basis of equality and helping professionals. So it's called United University Professionals. And the gentleman who spoke about it, he said that it also helped his son, who's a doctor now. And so that's one strong place where there's a strong union. If you work in a union, You can go behind the unions and you can ask them to make change if they're not already working for it. And on the to contrast that, we also had an individual who was talking about the actors union, and what she mentioned was that even as far as a response to uh, the recent situation, her union took longer than uh, you know longer than necessary to react to it. And she mentioned that there even recently there's been some colorblind casting where they've been trying to expand the cast. And what she was saying was that when you have a diverse cast of different actors, it ups the level of talent. It's actually for the better. And she mentioned there've been some instances where people were saying where directors are the reason why a lot of this stuff is happening. They would say inappropriate things to actors such as, "Hey, sing like that, but make it sound more black." So racist comments like that were occurring. And for actors, obviously this is somebody that you're auditioning to, and this is your job that's in their hands. And when you hear stuff like that, it puts so much pressure on you. So we have to be understanding about that. And she said some positives too. She said even though the union didn't react strongly to it, uh, a lot of other actors actually started to take charge and started to make a difference. So she mentioned how they were they wanted to a bunch of them got together and they said, you know what, let's start to read some black playwrights. So I think there's a black playwright by it's called Fence. So they started to do that. And what she found amazing about that was that it was a white Jewish actor who started this movement. She sent out an email and she got everybody involved. And I think that's what's great. Some of us have to step up and just form a little group and have these conversations. And one great thing that another one of our uh, one of the people in the group said, and this is somebody who's coming from a younger perspective. This young lady's in her 20s and she's a medical student. So she said that it's great that we follow voices, on social media and in our personal lives. But instead of celebrities advocating for certain things, we need educators and professionals in our field because it's been an issue. It's all around the world. It's in America. It's everywhere. Where we sort of idolize these celebrities, but they don't have the proper background in certain things. So a lot of times when they speak about something, it's without knowledge. And also one thing we have to be aware of is that uh, whoever we follow, we have to understand that sometimes with millionaires, mega millionaires, money erases your color. So certain times, somebody who's from a really well-off family, their path has been completely different than somebody who is from an underprivileged family. And so that's something that we have to understand, and we should be able to help uh, each other relate to the situation. And she specifically talked about the medical community, and she said that even the medical community has abused people of color, even though now the medical community has such a big platform, but they can
I
definitely
think
do
our
better.
time is limited. So, I mean, you've given us some really good ideas about
Yeah,
the
I'm gonna
youth.
wrap it up right now.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm gonna
Okay. Very
go.
good. Very good.
And thank you. And so that was one thing that we can ask the medical community to step up. And the last person that spoke, they mentioned that they work in a distribution company, and they only know 2 people of color. So they're not sure how to go about it, how to engage. They mentioned a great foundation called the Art of Living Foundation. That's an educational institution that helps engage the Black community. And so they found some platform. But just to end on this note, I think we should have the unions speak up for us, mention it to them. Definitely our companies, and on a personal level, on an individual level, we should share stories from the Black community to open up some eyes. And the key is not to get frustrated. Everything happens in time. To be patient, um, and I think eventually we're going to see some light. We already are, and there are only better things to come in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right, so uh, a lot of diversity in this, but I think we started with the personal commitment, and choosing people, looking at people who may not be in leadership positions, but pegging them to be in leadership positions, and then the um, the different avenues that we can go to, like the social media, writing articles in newspapers, um, um educating. Everybody seemed to mention over and over educating, and religious organizations, educational, the corporate responsibility. That's the other element, is the money coming in and where it can go to elect leaders who can guide us. Um, Local civil or civic organizations, nonprofits like my Rotary and the local Rotaries, and then the union. So I think we've looked at all different perspectives of where to go, and we just need the courage to, to look at people and to mention to people that this is an important issue to engage in the conversation that's so very important every day to open it. So thank you.